Is this loud enough? All right, great. Hi, my name is Andrew Dix. I'm the publisher and the editor of Crowdfund Insider. We're a publication, digital publication that covers fintech, blockchain, crowdfunding, basically all forms of disruptive finance. So obviously, as blockchain and ICOs has emerged as a favored form of online capital formation, we're kind of deep into this right now, and we're covering this pretty aggressively, and it's quite a fascinating space. Of course, there's been some really interesting ICOs, and there's been some that have been interesting in a different way because they've been kind of dodgy. There's quite a few of those out there. So for cryptocurrencies and ICOs right now, the killer app to date has really been about raising money online. But we're going to take a little bit of a different spin here today with this panel, because blockchain is so much more than just finance. It's really a disruptive technology that all types of businesses are going to be incorporating in different ways. Today or yesterday, we had a short story about Audi looking at incorporating blockchain into their operational workflow. And they see this as a way to remove friction from their operations and doing different things in different ways that improves their overall operational structure. So today we have Dr. Stephen Castell, Jonathan Frye, and Carlotta de Nina. Yes. Obviously, these three people are experts in their own sphere and realm, and I'm going to ask each of them to introduce themselves and give you a little quick synopsis of where they are in this space and their focus on this world. So I'm going to talk to you. Start with you.
Hello.
Doctor.
Is this on? Yes, it's on.
Yeah, that's you.
Oh, yeah. I'm Stephen Castell from my own Castell Consulting. I've been involved as a professional computer software and systems engineer for many, many years, starting off in industrial research and then into management consultancy and then into investment and merchant banking, and then starting my own consultancy. Along the way, forming my own new venture, Infolex, which is the UK's first commercially available computer-assisted legal information retrieval service on something called Prestel Videotex, which is even the precursor of the internet. So I know a little bit about doing startups. Indeed, echoing what the last speaker just said, disrupting how people raise finance. I was very instrumental in the 80s in the over-the-counter market, getting that started here in the UK, which was raising risk capital from small shareholders for small startup tech companies. It was so successful that eventually the London Stock Exchange had to react to it, and they formed something called the unlisted securities market, which became the third market, which then became the alternative investment market, which still survives today. But effectively, they do regulate out of existence the OTC market. There's an interesting model there. But I'm also very interested in the whole creative process. This seems to have gone dead again. No, it doesn't.
No, we can hear you.
You just got to hold it very close, is it? Yes, you can hear it. I had an idea for this panel to look at the whole use of I believe very much in the asset-backed token, the idea that this is a new way of raising finance for companies in the value chains, and with asset-backed tokens and commodity-backed tokens, and none more so where you have asset in the form of intellectual property. And I can see a very great role for it in the creative industries, in music, in art, if you like, in wine, which is a sort of intellectual property that you can sort of drink as well, which is brilliant. So that's very much where I see this panel as being very, very interesting.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Jonny Frye. Sorry, can't you hear me? I'm not really keen on these things. Can you hear me? Yeah. My name's Jonny Frye. I'm intrigued. There's a whole lot of guys in the building over there from JP Morgan. Really? Okay. Sorry, I'm intrigued. There's the building over there. They've all got binoculars from JP Morgan, because obviously they're interested in what we're talking about this afternoon. Unfortunately, I used to be involved in that industry, in the asset management business. I set up a fund management company in the early 80s and went on to the AIM market, which obviously the doctor here was instrumental in creating. God, it sounds like Doctor Who almost, don't we? And then went on to the main market, and then for tax purposes went back down to AIM. And so I've come to the sort of blockchain world and the cryptocurrency world and what we refer to as tokenomics with a huge amount of cynicism and concern that it's just a lot of hot air. But over the last 18 months, 2 years, realised that raising money for companies is just one aspect. The financial side of, if you like, cryptocurrency is just one part of what we're seeing, and it's allowing businesses and governments to actually have a better flow of information, provenance, helping reduce the black economy, and as we've seen today with the speakers, bringing new businesses and new technology and allowing funding in a way that it just is not possible. If I can perhaps give you an example of that, currently today in the UK economy, we have a couple of different stock markets, AIM being one of them, FTSE fledgling being another good example. There are 638 companies in the UK that have a stock market quote that are valued between 2 and 50 million. It is almost impossible for them to raise money. Now, I know that as an ex-fund manager because we used to try and invest in those companies. And the trouble is, as an institutional fund manager, and we were tiny, we only had $1 billion or so under management, which sounds a big number, but compared to big gorillas over there, JP Morgan and the likes in this area, it's a tiny amount of money. If you pick a company and it doubles, and you invested, say, $500,000, it's now worth $1 million, it's impossible to get your money out. So what's the point of that as an institutional investor? If you put $500,000 and it halves, everyone then points a finger and said, you know, why didn't you buy IBM? Why didn't you buy a well-known company, a brand? And therefore, what that's led to, not just in the UK, but globally, there's less and less initial placing offers, IPOs. And I see what's happened with ICOs, they've effectively replaced the IPO. And providing you do your ICO as if it is an IPO, then you're actually exposing your token holders to much, much less risk. The final thing I'd like to sort of finish on is that many people that are involved in ICOs, whether you're a token buyer or whether you're a shareholder founder looking to set up an ICO, just make sure before you invest that the conflicts of interest between token holders and actual shareholders have been addressed. So what I mean by that is that, you know, Stephen launches an ICO, and my money as a token holder creates a valuable business which he then sells on to, let's say, Microsoft. And they don't need a token holder like me. So my money has built his business. How is that right? How is that fair? Well, the answer is it's not. And the lawyers that we're talking to at Team Blockchain are actually addressing this and looking at it now, because the only information in the public domain is this wretched thing called a white paper. It's the only thing out there that's stating what the company's trying to do and what the verification is, which very often, certainly this time last year, it was almost non-existent. And the lawyers are looking at it and saying, this is really easy. We'll do it on a pro bono basis. We know they've got 10 or 20 million in the bank. Let's have a go.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Carlotta de Nina. I'm the head of research for Mycelia. And my background is in audio engineering, so not finance at all, but more kind of very technically how audio equipment work, if you like. But I moved a little bit towards management and stuff until kind of hearing the word blockchain, and that's when I started to work with an artist. Her name is Imogen Heap, and she was one of the early adopters, now probably more than 3 years ago, of this technology. Adopters and supporters, we can say, because she was the first one ever releasing a piece of music with a smart contract attached, with an experiment in collaboration with a service named Ujo Music. And after that experiment, she kind of envisioned this future of music ecosystem that could be literally helped and powered by a technology like blockchain technology. And so this is how Mycelia kind of came on board. And if you want to understand why mycelium, I mean, the mycelium is literally the mushroom which is underneath every forest. It's literally the sharing of information of nature. So if you want to get the kind of the link in between what we want to do within the music industry and actually our name, the link of information with this mycelium is literally why, for instance, in forests, the trees kind of grow at the same length, or some trees grow even more because they might need more light or more water. So if you get this kind of concept but applied it to the music industry, this is actually what we are looking into. And of course, we are keen on kind of experimenting with decentralized technologies, because we really need a base layer of information that could actually very help and to grow the music ecosystem. And after this first experiment that we did with smart contracts, which was absolutely not at a commercial kind of standard, but it was just to kind of experiment and see what could be done and what could not be done. At the moment, we are focusing on this other project that the name is the Creative Passport, which is kind of an identity wrapper for music makers, which means artists, songwriters, engineers, people literally working within music. And this kind of container, what's going to be? It's going to be a database of information about what a music maker is the representatives of a music makers and stuff. And of course, we are looking into blockchain technology for that.
Okay, so this is interesting. I didn't know that Imogen Heap actually, used crypto for people to purchase her album. It was a year ago, 2 years ago. It's fairly recent.
Yeah, more than 2 years ago.
More than 2 years ago.
Yeah,
So,
more or less.
so I was
It
talking.
was a song.
I was talking to Carlotta, and she said that, a couple years back or 2 years ago, that she was selling her album for how much ETH? How much Ether?
One download, one song. It was less than £1 ETH back then. It was literally just launched.
So this worked out pretty well for her, I think, because what's the price of Ether right now? It's gone up a little bit.
$800 today. Yeah, something like that.
So 400. So then Carlotta said that she's taking this money that she's made. She's one of these crypto rich now, and she's investing this into perhaps, right? And now she's investing this further into building this entire project. So can you explain to me what she is going to do going forward? What's Imogen going to do going forward with blockchain, crypto, and this entire concept? Is she going to do an ICO? Is she just going to sell all her creative work using blockchain? How's that going to go?
So, she's not a crypto millionaire. We did 150 downloads, so you can do the math. I mean, it's kind of quite a lot of money, but not millions.
Okay.
But just to say, and indeed, she's using those funds to kind of funding our kind of things that we're going next. So, with the Creative Passport, at the moment, we're not tech developers ourselves. So, we are doing a minimum viable product, and we are literally under development and prototyping this whole idea of the platform, and we are working off-chain at the moment.
Are you doing this in-house, or
Yes.
are you outsourcing it?
We are outsourcing it. The thing is that within these 3 years that we have been going around conferences and speaking about the possibilities of this technology with or within the music industry, that the key part is that, of course, people from the industry were kind of reluctant to the idea of having this new technology, seeing it as a real danger, if you want to put it like that.
The creative people. The musicians?
The music people, not the musicians, the so-called legacy players, publishers,
the
record
publishers,
labels.
the attorneys are going to get cut out of this process.
Yes. The thing is that at first, there was this more kind of, not even disruption, but the distraction idea of we don't need anyone else, we don't need intermediaries, we just need the audience to buy the music and the artists. To be honest, and also thanks God, over those 3 years, this kind of very harsh position kind of shifted a little bit more into middle, both from the legacy industry players, so being a little bit more flexible in understanding the potentiality of this technology, also for their own kind of interest, not only for the artist's interest, but also the new kids on the block, because what happened was that there were a lot of new startups just saying, we've got blockchain, we've got this technology, and we don't need anyone else. But then they just realized they were not people from the music industry. They were people from the tech, so having a tech background, and they were missing a lot of I mean, they didn't know actually what was going on within the music industry. So they were presenting a solution without really understanding the issue.
But somebody's going to come along and figure that out, and that's going to be you, right?
Well,
you're the one.
Well, we are trying to actually meet this bridge, to connect these two dots, because not being technology developer ourselves, the thing is that we kind of understand a little bit what's happening within the blockchain world, the possibilities, and we also, thanks to our team and also various external collaborators that actually took within their heart what we are trying to do as a non-profit, because we are a non-profit, and the Creative Passport is going to be something which is more like a public good rather than a for-profit tool. Which is very important, and also why we didn't choose to do an ICO.
Okay, I'm going to come back.
I mean,
I'm going to come back to your Creative Passport here in a second. But Jonathan, you're the guy who helps put this all together, right? You're the guy who does the strategy, the tokenomics, the soup to nuts, right? Are you seeing more creative opportunities today, now? I mean, everybody was like, oh, I got to do an ICO. I got to raise money because it's so easy, it's so fast. It's this sugar rush of immediate funds, right? But are you seeing more creative types, films, sports, music?
Okay, so what we're seeing is, thankfully, more professionalism in terms of the actual offerings that are coming out. So going back onto the music scene that Carlotta's touching on, we're helping a Dutch company. And there's a DJ, and excuse my pronunciation, but his DJ is Tisco, I think it is, who is the #1 electronic dance music DJ, who allegedly hires himself out at €300,000 per hour. If you find that hard to believe, did any of you see the closing ceremony of the Olympics? Anyone?
So he's doing a blockchain project.
Well,
or an ICO.
Just to finish it, the closing ceremony, the closing act was electronic dance music, DJ, I think in his mid-20s, spinning a few discs on an old turntable, because that is a market which is, if you play as a DJ, you typically don't get paid for 160 days. So Tizo is actually sponsoring an ICO to solve some of the challenges you're talking about in terms of payment. In terms of some of the other things we're seeing, really touching on what Stephen was talking about in terms of real assets. Unfortunately, most of the tokens in existence, they're telling you fibs. They are not utilities. They are securities, because they're building something. Very, very few tokens out there actually have anything today to sell. And they're taking your money to build some software, to build a marketplace, to build a platform. And therefore, by definition, many, many lawyers, and increasingly the SEC, are saying, sorry, you're misleading the public. It's a security. And there's nothing wrong with securities. You just have to spend some of your monies on complying with the rules and regulations. So if you accept that you're a security, it immediately leads you into Stephen's world, which I absolutely totally agree with. And it's what the market needs to cut the volatility out, and that is have tokens backed by assets. So another example that we're seeing is basically property ICOs, whereby you're taking a very, very illiquid market. You're introducing new investors on a global basis, not just investors in the US or here in the UK or in Europe, but you're bringing a global number of investors who are investing a relatively small amount of money into buildings like this. And by having fractional ownership and tokenization, it's created a new asset class. But it is 100% backed by property. It's creating a yield, a dividend, which can either get paid out in tokens or it can get paid out in fiat money, dollars, euros, whatever you actually want.
Okay, but you're not seeing too many creative projects then. You've seen one then? No film, no sports, nothing that's,
Seeing no sports. I think the films are struggling from all the tax scandals in the UK that we've certainly seen over the last few years.
All right. So when I was introduced to Dr. Castell, he told me he's the resident skeptic here, that he's the one that questions everything. And you have to have a lot of that. I mean, God's sakes, this is really a securities-based product, and you have to be skeptical about these things. So is this all bunk? Do you think it's going to happen? This is the way forward? Tell me.
Gosh, right. Yeah, I made my living actually the last 25 years as an expert in disputes. So I'm fiercely independent. I'm the guy that gets in there and tells people the technical truths, often unpalatable truths. I'm pretty sure I will be acting as an expert on blockchain-based projects. I don't know whether they be cryptocurrencies, don't really care. Maybe private blockchains where the implementation goes wrong. The technology itself is fine. It's all about implementation. And in a sense, an ICO is only an implementation of what is fundamentally a systems project. And most of them are done exceedingly badly. I'm actually quite puzzled as to why cryptocurrencies as such is getting all the attention. I mean, just can I ask anybody, so when was the last time we all actually used cash? A lot of cash in anger. Who uses cash these days? Let alone who invests in cash. I mean, I've got a few dollars, maybe a few euros. Why are people investing in a currency? Who invests in currency? Currency investment is a very specialized area anyway in the whole investment industry. It just puzzles me as to why cryptocurrency should be the thing. Crypto assets, asset-backed tokens, where they have a utility value in a value chain for a company, particularly, as I say, in the intellectual property area, which has had trouble monetizing itself. I think that's a very exciting field. And I can see that one or two big name artists have got to get the thing going. And there have already been some other ventures where
rights management.
Yeah,
kind
other
like
artists
Kodak
have come in.
coin
But what really would excite me is to open it up to the whole field of any one of us. We're all creative. Well, maybe I have a few paintings I'd like to somehow just allow people to enjoy and find a way of monetizing. Many people don't even want to make a huge amount of money from it, but they want to fund their own hobby, fund their own creative impulses. This idea of using this new technology on a platform which can be trusted, and the word trust is very important here, is I think a very exciting prospect. That's where I would see it going in the creative industries. But I don't know of any big named ventures that are actually addressing the whole unsigned bands market, if you like, the whole unsigned painters market, the whole unsigned writers. I mean, authors. There's a huge industry already addressing unsigned authors.
Right. Yeah. And I think that Kodak coin, whether it's successful or not, I mean, they're trying to raise $175 million for a rights management.
So I can say I'm actually advisor to. I'm actually involved in a blockchain, a cryptocurrency, for a US corporation that has a massive back catalogue of film and pictures.
Absolutely.
And part of the tension there is that the technologists involved in it want it to be an ICO offering, a cryptocurrency. And I'm saying, hang on, no, look, just grasp the nettle that it might fall under securities regulation. That's actually a much more exciting prospect. It's a way of enfranchising your customer base in your own IP. Rather than just buying a single issue of a photograph, you can actually give them a stake in that photograph for every other single issue that's sold. That's the new model that I see with this crypto technology.
Yeah, and everything in the U.S. is securities now. I mean, that's clear. And I'd really love to get in the weeds about securities law and jurisdictions right now because I get a kick out of it. But Barry keeps pointing at me, telling me that our time is up. Do we have time for any questions for the people?
Yeah, let's take a couple.
If anybody has any questions for the panel, you know.
I just have one question. If I could just ask, just out of clarity, my background being small cap stocks, so I get a little confused sometimes on the idea of it being a security. Security to me has always been a legal term. And I was just wondering on this coin thing, of course, when people talk about utility coins, it's also defining something. So I got the impression from this gentleman that if you're doing a capital raise, that in itself is by definition a security if you're providing capital that a company is using. And we're just wondering if you're issuing these coins and there's an obligation to it, and of course if there's disclosure about what the coin's going to be used for. I mean, companies are going to use money, whether or not they sell a product or whatever. And I was just wondering if everybody really feels that it's that shut and, if it's that airtight. Or, I mean, I just want to, and one other point, everybody keeps talking about the U.S. being, everything's a security. It's my understanding the nature of how the U.S. writes their laws is that I think they approach it backwards. They say everything is a security, except blah, 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 blah. Instead of saying, you know, which I think would be a much more pro way to say, well, you know, it's not security in case it does this. So, but that's just always been their approach historically. I think to say everything is illegal except unless you go through these windows.
So we're going to have to limit it to one
Yeah,
question.
we're
and
gonna
draw a
move on,
line
yeah.
there.
So
Pardon me,
maybe-
anyway, but
So,
I'm
so,
curious.
so I'm happy. So I'm happy to dive into the U.S. stuff, but since we're in the U.K., Jonathan, do you want to kind of give you a quick 5-second?
I'm not sure the question was.
Is everything a security in the UK? They really haven't announced a bespoke regulatory structure here.
Okay, it's really interesting. I have to declare I'm a fan of America. My sister's lived over there for 20 years, and so I've spent a lot of time out there. But without being too controversial, it is a little bit of a police state in terms of day-to-day sort of living out there. And the fundamental difference between the UK and the US is you have a constitution, we don't. We tend to have our financial services, that's where my background is, based on sort of principles and code, and the dreadful expression, my word is my bond, and shake my hand as a gentleman or as a lady. Whereas in America, it tends to be much more prescriptive and rules-based. So therefore, I think that what's happened with cryptocurrencies is that there is a serious lack of guidance globally in terms of how are they regulated, what are they called, what are they? You know, we're using tokens, coins, securities, utilities, commodities. What are they? And very importantly, how are they taxed? So, you know, but I think if I can just give you one very, very simple example, which Gary will kill me, my colleague from Team Blockchain, because we always quote it in terms of what is a security. If I give you a ticket to go to the cinema, and you get a discount off your price, or if you get an upgrade, or you get perhaps some free food, but the cinema's already built, what's the utility? Use it and abuse it. And it's very similar to a loyalty scheme, of which, again, in America, amazing market, $300 billion market, and I think tokenization is going to absolutely revolutionize that business. But if you haven't built the cinema, and you're going to now convert this office into a cinema, and I pay for a ticket, and that money goes to renovation, sticking a projector and a screen, what have you, and on top of that you get discounts, well, the money I'm raising is building some sort of asset. It's building a cinema in that case. And the byproduct is happen to get a discount to come to my cinema, but one is a utility and one very much, in my opinion, and certain 2 or 3 lawyers I know and a couple of accountants I know, they all say that's security. So I'm not sure if that helps, but that's kind of where I'm coming from when I made this statement there.
I'd love to go on.
No, let
and
Andrew
I'm sure we'd
answer,
love to hear
answer
more.
the last one. Andrew, what were you going to say about the U.S.?
Well, about the U.S., the soft is dead, basically. I mean, the SEC has just gone in hot, and they're, you know, have subpoenas to everybody. The way forward right now is clear. You file for an exemption, and that's what everybody's doing. Outside the U.S., you're just saying we don't accept U.S. investors. Now, people are getting around that in different ways because you can. It's not that hard, but that's what's going on in the U.S. right now. Everybody's kind of waiting for the dust to settle, and now you're going to see it professionalized and things rev back up, where you're going to see established platforms like a coin list start issuing coins again under Reg D, 506C, Reg CF, Reg A+, whatever they want to use, Reg S. But, you know, I don't want to get too into the lingo here because it gets kind of confusing.
Yeah. But I wanted to tell Andrew that that's the Crowdfund Insider. It's one of the greatest publications about crowdfunding.
Yeah, thank you very
everything
much.
over there.
Yeah.
And Andrew's a great writer. I go over there and get most of my information over there when I'm in media, but we're grateful to you be here and all the panel here. But that's crowdfundinsider.com. You can go over there. Thank you.
And thanks to the
thank
panel.
you very much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for a great job, panel.